My name is Jim Allard. I grew up in Yarmouth, Maine, and I worked as a paramedic for several years in Columbia, South Carolina. I work as a chief nursing officer at Medical City Arlington in Dallas, Texas. As a paramedic, I had the opportunity to go out and stabilize critical patients and bring them back to our trauma center. I received much experience during that time and really was able to advance pre-hospital care as I worked in that setting. When we arrived on scene, we would quickly do a scene assessment. We would be taken to where the patient is, and that would give me the opportunity to do an assessment on the patient, delegate to my crewmate, which may be a basic EMT or an intermediate EMT, so we could partner and care for this patient. We may stabilize the patient on scene, and then we would load the patient in the back of the ambulance and bring them to whichever facility that they were requesting to go to. Paramedics are now utilized across the country, and there are many jobs in the Texas market for paramedics out in EMS, emergency medical services, as well as now in our emergency rooms in hospitals. So I really got into pre-hospital care because I had a dream as a third grader. I wanted to know what was going on in the back of an ambulance. And so a friend of mine and I partnered when we were in high school and talked to our volunteer rescue for our town. And we said, how can we help? At that time, we were 16 years old. And she offered that we submit a letter to the town council and ask them if we could create a student rescue. And so we had the opportunity to train as licensed ambulance attendants, which was a 60-hour emergency first aid course. And then we were able to be on call one at a time during the week from school. So we could leave class to go on an emergency and then come back. So we were really getting involved at a young age in pre-hospital care. And so that led me to really recognize that I didn't know as much as I wanted to know as I cared for patients. And I would get a lot of sick kids, and I would fear sick kids because I was afraid I didn't know enough. So when I graduated high school, I immediately looked for a paramedic program. And so I was able to find an associate degree paramedic program in New Hampshire, went to that associate degree paramedic program, which there are many across the country, and trained to the highest licensure level I could work out in the field. At that time, there weren't a lot of full-time paramedic roles in New England, so a friend got me interested in going to South Carolina. This is very different now. There's paramedics almost in every state across the country now. So at that time, I went to South Carolina and worked in a busy county service. And as I did that for about 5 to 6 years, I really honed my skills, became an expert as a paramedic, and then I thrived on what was next. How could I spend more time with my patients? How could I learn what happened to them after I left them at the emergency room? And so with that, I decided to go back to nursing school. I felt it gave me the most opportunity to work in a variety of different areas. I didn't necessarily have to specialize, but I could go to different areas depending on what I decided to do down the road. I knew at that time I wanted to be a pediatric critical care expert, so that's the path I took once I became a nurse. I was a hockey player, so I learned much about leadership from my hockey coach, and I think that's what helped me, develop into leadership roles early on. As well, we had an opportunity within the high school to be what's called a natural helper. Natural helpers were there to help support peers in high school when they were having a crisis, whether it be with another peer friend or a family member or a school teacher. As a natural helper, I was chosen by my classmates to be in this role. I was able to be called upon by a peer so I could go help coach them, counsel them, support them through whatever that time was they were having. I think those extracurricular activities really helped me grow as a person and helped me be more connected to people and really wanting to help people mature, help people through a crisis time, and help people just live a better life. Like I mentioned earlier, there are many ways to get to your final outcome being a nurse or being a paramedic, all of which are going to help you care for people. Know that when you go into nursing school, you don't necessarily have to pick a specialty. These decisions don't have to be made at the very beginning of your career. Those can be made as you get experience and then as you decide where you want to spend your time for the next area of your career.